So, hello everybody. It's 30 minutes to midnight on my clock. It's my local time, and your time may vary. It's details of thread signaling working group dots, and I'm seeing that we can start. So, this is not well. It's a reminder of IETF policies. I also remind that the session is being recorded. So, the meeting details. The chairs are Xian Lia. Currently, he's not available, and myself. So I will chair this session today. Our responsible AD is Ben Keduk. So meeting slides and notes and Jabber are on the following link, on this page. So, and we have to perform some administrative tasks. Blue sheets are collected automatically. We need volunteers. We need one JavaScript, and we need 2 note takers. So, anyone volunteering? Okay. No volunteers? Okay. So,
I'll try to help out, but if anyone wants to go into the CodeEMD, additional help is welcome.
Thank you, Ben. And what about JavaScript? I think we have very few participants, and we have a chat, integrated chat window. So probably we don't need JavaScript, but if somebody will monitor chat window and not translate, but speak to the mic if somebody speaks, if somebody has no audio and want to speak, it will be very grateful. Currently, I see no activity on the chat window, but well, okay, I'll try to do it myself. Okay. Then this is agenda for today. So we have several presentations, and the presentations cover the current working group documents and the new document that is a candidate for the adoption. And the report, also the presentation, has a report of testing of Google's hackathon. And anybody want to bash this agenda? Okay. So let's quickly go through the working group draft status. So we have, since the last IETF, we have one RFC published. It's .use cases, RFC 8903. It was published on May 22nd. And we have several working group items remaining. And the signal channel draft is being in the IETF in the RFC editor queue. And control and filter rules, it's also in the RFC editor queue, but it is waiting for a missing reference to a new signal channel draft. And signal channel call home is an ISG evaluation status, and the DOTS telemetry, it is requested in publication, but it is waiting for a review. We also have telemetry use cases draft. It's the only remaining working group document that is being actively developed, and also multi-homing considerations draft that is very, very slowly developed by the working group. There is very little discussion, but hopefully the last revision of the draft has some significant changes. So I think that's all for the draft status update, and we can go to presentations. I will change deck.
Okay, so it's John here. I'll be giving the on the call home, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so I'll go ahead. So if we have the next slide, please. It's blank on my end at the moment. Okay, so essentially is that things are moving through. There's a review, some good comments, a couple of things in particular to do with port assignment. So we tried to explain that call home was different, a completely different distinct service than the signal channel, but we ran into using yet another port as part of the challenge. So in May 2021, we actually withdrew the port request just to stop this blocking going forward, with the recommendation that if both DOTS and DOTS call home is hosted on the same server, that we just use distinct ports to listen to what's taking place there. So because currently just waiting now, there's I think there's a tele chat coming up on August the 12th or something on this one here, just to kind of progress it forward, because it's kind of stuck, just needing more yeses to help go through. Next slide. So yeah, so I don't know, Ben, whether you've got any comments on this, but I know that there's now tele chat. You may want to make some comments, because we'd like to be able to move forward on this.
Right. So it is sort of my fault that it was sitting around for. There was one thing after another, but as you know, I did get to put it on the agenda for the next telechat, which is August 12th. And so I think you had quoted it needs 4 more yes or no objection positions to be approved, and that's just sort of a property of the ISG ballot procedures. So we need, for standards track documents, we need 2/3 of the ADs to be yes or no objection before we can approve the document, because standards track document is supposed to be a high quality thing that's gotten a lot of review. And so the expectation is that all the ADs that haven't looked at it yet will look at it in the next couple of weeks. And ideally, because it's already been looked at so much, it should be pretty straightforward to get those approvals in. But there's always some chance that the new reviews will find something else that will require a change to the document.
Sure. Well, it's understood that, if things come back and they're genuine, then yeah, we'll update the document accordingly to handle whatever's been raised. Not a problem at all. But yeah, so we're just hopeful that things can move forward on this one at some point. But I understand.
Yeah, we finally got it unstuck.
Yeah.
Then just a clarifying question. It's an unusual situation, at least for me. And does the new ISG evaluation means that those area directors that have already expressed their opinion about this draft and have no objection ballot will re-evaluate and probably change their mind to some other, I don't know, some new comments, or only remaining ballots will be, I don't know, discussed or reviewed. For those area directors that have already reviewed this draft, will this re-review of this draft or not?
So for most of them, I expect they will just look at the changes, look at the diff between the version that they looked at before and the current version. And the changes are, if I remember correctly, fairly small and self-contained. And so I don't expect new comments other than sort of typo fixes in the new text. I don't expect anybody to really read the whole document again and find something new. So I think mostly we're just going to be getting detailed comments from the people who never reviewed it at all.
Yep, that's great. Certainly, I think the common port was a sticking point, but now
Yes.
we've kind of removed that, and I think that should oil the wheels sufficiently for movement forward on that one.
I think so.
Okay, so I think that's that. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben, and thank you, John. So next presentation is Dot's multi-homing.
Yep.
And it's John again or not? Or
Yep.
no?
Yeah, no, I've been volunteered for this one.
Okay.
So come up there. So okay, so if we just go to the next slide, that'd be good. Okay, so basically with the multi-homing is that there's been very little change since some time back, but it's just that they're all kind of minor changes, updating some new references because things have become RFCs, etc. I did a review, and just out of that just came some clarification of thought and stuff. But again, the changes are relatively minor. Again, so more references. There's nothing pending, nothing outstanding. The text is stable from our perspective. So if we go to the next slide. So just looking for working group last call, so that people can just start to properly review it, come back and make some other comments as is appropriate.
So, as far as I understand, you don't expect any major changes to this draft.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you think that if we issue a working group last call, it will encourage people to review it because the draft has received relatively little discussion on the list.
Yeah, it's just so we go forward for that. It just is handling different connections to different service providers and all the kind of combinations of thereof. So it really is just giving good concrete examples of things that need to be sort of thought through and done and made to work properly.
Okay, I think we can issue working group last call up to IETF is finished. Well, up to some time after IETF, probably in a week or two.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll review the draft. Okay. By the end of August. Anyway.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So the next slide.
Okay, again, I've been volunteered. Well, I wrote quite a lot of this, so I know this one fairly well. So no, we got on to the interrupt testing. Sorry, we can do that. There was a yeah, we'll go into the interrupt testing. Do you want to do this one, Kalame?
So
he was on the yeah. Hi, Kalame, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I don't think the order of the presentation is correct.
It's probably the wrong order of my slides, but well, just a moment. It must be just quick blocks. But according to agenda, I will change. Sorry. Yes, it must be dots blocks. So let's follow the agenda. It's my fault. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you can stand out, Kaname, and then you have to stand up again in a minute. Yep. No problems at all. Okay. So this basically here is that if you just go to the next slide and the next one. Okay, so some of the background here is that we're adding extra telemetry information into DOTS, and we're using the DOT signal channel. But the real challenge is that the telemetry data will not fit into a single IP packet. It has to be split across multiple packets. Now, as far as COAP is concerned, RFC 7959 handles that, but it only does it with confirmable transfers. It only recommends it for use with confirmable transfers. But the issue we have with DOTS is that we need to use non-confirmable because there may be a flooded pipe or something like that. We need to be able to recover from that. So if we can then just move to the next slide. Out of that, a new draft is in the process of being written and is pending going through the queue or sitting on another RFC. But basically, it added in the support for transferring large blocks of data using non-confirmable. As I say, that's in the editor queue at the moment, just waiting. It defines some new session parameters which can be negotiated to fine-tune these transfer of data. And we currently have libcoap support for actually running the new block, or as is known now as the Q blocks type stuff. So we can go to the next slide. So there's some additional parameters. So those of us that are familiar with COAP will be things like ACK timeouts and so on, just to be able to deal with the congestion control. But there's some additional ones that have been introduced for this quick blocks stuff to make it work there. So what we've done, if we go to the next slide, we just want to take those additional parameters and augment the standard RF8782 BIS for the additional congestion control parameters. And so within this particular draft here, we just show the augment in the Yang module, and then we give some examples for use. So it really is just extending the ability to be able to negotiate things like ACK timeout with a new one called non-timeout. So that's essentially all it's doing there. So next slide. We would like adoption of the draft, if that's appropriate, just is literally adding in this half dozen set of parameters that can be negotiated when the signal session configuration is set up. So it's not making any changes to the protocol other than the Yang module being enhanced sitting in there. So we're just looking for adoption of the thing. It's a very simple, very straightforward draft. I don't know who's had a chance to look at it at all.
Okay.
But we'd like.
Okay. I think I'll issue an adoption call soon. It makes sense.
Thank you.
Kaname, do you want to comment?
So I understand this interrupt testing. Then we do agree with we need new block options. So also we need to way to negotiate the default values for the block, the Q block to 1 and 2 options. So I do support this draft. Just a comment.
Okay. Well, so thank you. I think we shall continue with the next. It's telemetry use case. Okay.
Okay. So I will explain the update point of DOTS telemetry use case draft. Next, please.
So if you want to go to the next slide, just tell me.
Oh, Can you hear me?
So shall I advance the slides?
I can hear both of you, and you had requested the next.
Well,
Yeah.
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Please, next slide. Okay. Oh, yeah. So this is update points of draft 02. We extracted use cases already included in the telemetry spec draft. We added a new use cases, and we organized the use cases. And we included examples of message bodies with the telemetry attributes. It's based on latest DOS telemetry draft. Next, please. Oh, please, next. And update points of draft 03, we modified just some needs. Next, please. We also think our comments from working group were addressed. So now this draft is stable. Also, we request a working group last call. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm a little bit concerned with a little discussion about this draft on the list, but probably if we issue a working group last call, it will encourage people to review it and we'll receive more comments. Okay. So I think that we can issue a last call. I will do it soon. Well, at the time, approximately the same time as with multi-home draft. So
yeah,
soon after IETF, by the end of August.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So, and now it's interrupt test and report. So.
Yeah, this is Kaname again. So can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so as I said, we did interrupt testing of .q block. So this time I'd like to present the result of interrupt testing. Then I and John did interrupt testing this Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay, next slide, please. So here's the plan. So the target draft is the latest version of draft IETF core U block. Then the interoperability was tested between two entities. One side is from me, Go Dots, which is open source Dots implementation by entity. Then the other is from John. Then the testing scope was preliminary but successful giant step for Qblock implementation. We mainly tested the cases of Qblock2, which is a bulk communication from .server to .client, which is described in section 10.2 of the draft. Then this is a quick recap. In short, it was successful. The both ends use the exact same libcorp library forked by John, so that is one of the reasons it was successful, but the client successfully recovered the whole body of Qblock2 whole body of the dot message by Qblock2 mechanism, even with certain rate of packet loss. Next slide, please. Then again, as John said, here is the advantages and designs of Qblock. First, it supports non-conformable message to tackle with DDoS unidirectional network pipe loss. Second, it generates fewer packet interchanges compared with the existing block options. Then lastly, it provides faster recovery, even with the packet loss in the transmission. Okay, next slide, please. Then this is slide illustrates the testing environment. In this case, there's no packet loss between .client and server. Then, for example, .client is my side and .server is John's side. Then they communicate each other over the internet. Then the bulk get requests of some resources from the client is communicated over QAP. Then qBlock2 get requests with triggers consecutive responses from server. So there is no problem with qBlock2 communication over the internet. Then next slide, please. Then we tried to simulate the asymmetric packet loss of the DDoS attack. So we manually imposed a symmetric random packet loss in the pipe by IP tables. Then, as described in the draft, the communication packet from .server to client has a chance to be lost in the flight. So then the sum of packets from .server got lost, then which was noticed by the .client in timeout manner. Then the client asks for the missing blocks in the additional request. So it is actually simulated in the interrupt scenario. Next slide, please. Then here is the summary of the interrupt result. In without loss cases, the client successfully received the entire body, which is larger than max payload. Then every max payload count gives congestion control pause if no continue response. Then also it revealed that it only requires fewer packets compared with existing block 2, which normally requires confirmer message of QAP. Then with loss cases, it is surprising that it successfully recovered entire body even with 1 to 10% packet loss rate. Also, it requires fewer packets. So it means reclaim of the missing blocks is requires only one packet to get the to indicate the missing blocks. Then we found a few libcop bugs, but they are now fixed. Then, however, I'd like to introduce those bugs to share the notions. Next slide, please. Okay, then the first one is about the method to be used in the block to communication, qBlock to communication, and also block to communication. Then issue was that it was not clear before the interrupt which request method should be used for asking for missing blocks. For example, put triggers a large blocked response. Then I and John reached the conclusion that when requesting the additional blocks, block 2, or requesting the missing blocks, which is qBlock2, then the request method is the same for the next blocks as the initial request, even if it was a put. So this is also applicable. So this is not only for qBlock, but also to existing block. Then it is it is to indicate the resource is the same to the .server. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this one is about the in order about the distinguishing the messages between the new message or the existing message. So initial get for the entire body, which is num is 0 and more bit is set, could be misunderstood by the co-op server as a request for the remaining missing blocks of the previous block response. So in the conclusion, get with num 0 and more bit set should be treated as a request for the entire new or refreshed body. So in the draft, it is clearly noted, like in draft 4.4 section, num is 0 should be request for the entire body. But the tested libcop confused about the interpretation of this message. So it is now fixed, so there is no problem. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the end of the slide. So any question is welcome. Thank you.
So my question, just to clarify, as far as I understand, you both use the same implementation of kublock as modified libcop library. So it's not two independent implementation, or not?
So from kublock perspective, yeah, that is not independent. However, the communication over co-op is using the different implementation. So I mean, we use the we dot communication over co-op. So in that sense, they are independent.
Yeah, it's correct that libcoap does a lot of the handling of the draft itself. And you could argue that the draft and libcoap are kind of tied together because that's how the draft evolved with libcoap being developed. But as Kanabei said during the testing, is that even with 15% packet loss and stuff, there was not any significant delay of the data actually arriving, despite various packets getting lost and so on. So yes, most of it's held in the libcoap layer. There is a little bit of application requirement done on both sides to make use and tell the subsystem that we want to go and use kublock.
Okay. So I agree, it is very useful for a reliable channel to have some of this feature. So since it dropped, I will issue an adoption call soon. I think it's useful.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, when the core RSC is approved, then we'll just make reference to that in the telemetry document. We refer to it anyway as a suggestion, but it maybe we need to tweak the language there a bit, strongly recommending that it gets used, as opposed to this is under development, available, or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we're over with our presentations, with the presentations that were requested. So we have open mic, and I want to have some small, we have plenty of time left. So I want to talk a little bit about the updating of our charter. And so Ben thinks that the charter should be more concrete about the documents that the group is developed, because there are just plenty of a lot of common words and very little. Only the last paragraph describes the documents that the group is concerned with. So actually, I've already changed the milestones and added documents that wasn't in the milestones to the list of milestones, and it is waiting for our AD approval milestones. And actually, I don't have a new words for the charter, a new text for the charter, an updated text for the charter handy, but I want to know if people think it's a good idea to just more precisely describe the draft the working group is concerned with. So, do you have any opinion on this?
And just to give a little bit more background on that, I think the current charter text was written several years ago, and now we've published RFC 8782 and 8783, and so the core specifics of what we were trying to do are now published, and we may not need to have as much introductory material about the general scenario and the general technology, because that's already published. And it may be time to revisit what we say that we're going to be working on, because we already did a lot of what we originally said, and now we have some new things, some different things that we're working on. And if we want to document that so that the ISG and external consumers can get a better picture of what we're currently doing, that could make sense. There's of course also an option to say that yes, we did what we said we were going to do. That's success. We can declare victory, and we can close the working group if we say that we did what we set out to do. That's always an option as well. But really, the people in the working group who are doing the work have a lot to say in terms of what the path looks like in the future.
So, okay, I think that I will, and probably with the help of Frank, if he's available, I will try to prepare a clarified charter, and we'll send it to the list, and then we'll send you for your approval. Is this a good way?
Yes, that sounds good. I'm just trying to update the minutes at the same time. Okay,
So,
I guess no one is coming into the queue.
yes. So I think we have done, and it's 20 minutes ahead of time. So if no one wants to use an open mic opportunity and to speak, then we can close. So thank you, everybody, and see you this IETF, and I hope the next IETF too. Bye-bye.